Oh, this is a really great question, actually. My girlfriend just texted me because I guess her coworker had a loan question.
Yeah.
She asked if you could only use a VA loan once. Hello, and welcome to Loanology, your go to podcast for unlocking the secrets of the mortgage and real estate world. I'm Jonathan Wells, and I'm here to guide you through everything from first time homebuyer grants to the latest trends in real estate. Whether you're buying your first home, looking to refinance, or simply interested in the market, you're in the right place. Each week, we'll dive deep into topics that matter to you, the consumer. We'll demystify the mortgage process, explore innovative financial solutions, and provide you with the tools and knowledge you need to navigate the real estate market confidently. From interviews with industry experts to tips on improving your credit score and securing the best mortgage rates, Loanology is your ultimate resource for all things mortgage and real estate. So, whether you're here to learn a few tips, find your next home, or just curious about the market, tune in and let's make your real estate journey a successful one.
Use it over and over and over.
Exactly.
All the time.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
You can even use it for investments now, right? Like other than your primary,
Um,
they have that investment thing.
so you can't use it for an investment purchase, but you can vacate a primary residence and turn it into an investment property that has a VA loan on it.
Okay. I thought I saw something where you can get up to like a 40.
Yeah, but you have to live in one as a
Yeah,
primary. So like it's for primary residential purchases only. However, you can have multiple VA loans open at one time. So it's all about your entitlement, which you would get off the certificate of eligibility when you pull that for your loan.
Right.
So base entitlement's like $36,000 or, 25% of your purchase or whatever, right? So that's why you don't have to put down a down payment. You have no mortgage insurance, everything else, because the VA guarantees 25% of that mortgage. Now, if you have entitlement already tied up into a property, when you purchase your next home, you'll have to do a calculation. And sometimes you can get away with 0% down, but other times you have to put down a small down payment or whatever, just depending on how much entitlement you have based on the purchase price and everything else.
It could be like 12.5% of the spread or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then if you like what happens a lot is let's say you're selling a property and moving into a new one. I've had a client do that. They went from Tennessee to Indiana and they sold their primary in Tennessee. As they were driving up here for the closing, we were able to restore their entitlement as they were driving because it doesn't take very long to do that. And then they were able to close with full entitlement, on the new place.
Nice.
So
Yeah, they just got to show the closing statement. Right?
yeah, actually the closing statement we have to call the VA and get it updated, and like it takes they're used to doing it like that, so that's like the one thing the VA is pretty quick about.
Right.
So
See, like sometimes people want to go in that direction. It's like it's not always the best loan though because the back end fees.
yeah, I mean if
Depending
you're
on what you're eligible for.
if you're like no disability rating, nothing, you will have typically on your first purchase it's 2.3% in a guarantee fee that'll get tacked onto your loan balance. So if you don't put anything down, you'll be like slightly underwater on your house for the first like year or so, right?
Right.
But the like if you have I forgot the exact rating. It might be any disability rating.
It gets reduced. I know that.
It gets reduced, and at a certain point, it goes away.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're like typically for most of my clients that come in that have disability that are VA clients, they're usually 80 to 100% disabled. Is usually the people that I work with, and they've got like my buddy. Shout out to Charlie. I think he's 100% disabled now. Still has a full-time job driving at UPS, and he's getting like a big check from the VA every month. He's getting his check from his job every month. He also has a real estate license on the side, and he's like been living he would like buy a home, live in it for 2 or 3 years, and then go buy another primary residence and rent that one out. So he's got like 4 rentals right now.
Right.
And then he can purchase in Illinois and not pay any property taxes because is either 80 or 100% is what he's got. But anything 80 and above in Illinois, you don't pay property taxes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So in Indiana, I think they do like a reduced rate, but you're not like not paying taxes. You still have to pay property taxes in Indiana.
I got you.
So that kind of blows. But whatever.
Taxes. They get taxes everywhere.
Oh, dude, taxes are ridiculous. Yeah.
It's so much.
Inflation is the new tax, bro.
Oh, dude.
Like, I saw a post today about how in the 80s, making $100,000 was like you were making it. And everyone was chasing that lifestyle, and people are still like, oh man, $100,000 a year, like I've made it. And if you look at, an inflation calculator, like in today's money, that would be $300,000 is what you'd have to make to be living.
I would think.
Yeah, exactly. At least, right?
Well, because home values are up, like, I mean, I think it was in 1981. I looked it up. The median home price was like $42,000 in America, or something like that. Yeah, now it's like what, 400 or something, or 375?
Yeah, I think it's like, what's the average?
Well, that's the median.
Oh yeah, median.
Yeah, nationwide.
I'll look it up here. Median home price in America as of September 2023 is $412,000.
Yeah, I think
it's insane.
427 now. So if you think of that,
it's pretty accurate, probably.
That's essentially 1,000% increase from 1980 in a 40-year span, 43-year span. Now CEO wages have definitely kept up.
Oh yeah, CEO wages have for sure.
Those guys, it's like hitting the lottery.
Oh yeah.
But average work pay, I mean, what, 100% increase?
Yeah, you're right. It's 47,200 back in 1980. So yeah, I mean, like if you were making $100,000 a year, that's just over double, the average home price.
Right.
So I mean, like, if you're making $800,000 a year, like, doing pretty well right now for sure.
That's my point though, because like, they come up with these statistics, and it's some guy that's coming out and saying it, but compare like the value, like
right.
You remember a few months ago, running around Facebook locally, a guy's like, "Oh, check this ad out I found of a home for sale."
Oh yeah, like a Sears home or whatever.
Yeah. And it was, I think, in the 50s.
Yeah.
And one of the loan officers was like, "I wonder what kind of job you needed to afford that home." So I looked up minimum wage at the time. And using a 25% ratio, I was like, you can afford that house on a minimum wage job working at McDonald's.
Yeah.
He's like, shut up. And I'm like, look up minimum wage in that year.
Right.
And he's like, oh my God, you're so right. So think about that. You could have a minimum wage job.
Right.
And afford to buy a home.
Right.
Our parents' generation made a lot less money at minimum wage.
Right.
Than like we did. I think when I started working, it was like $5.15 or something.
Right.
Parents' generation made a lot less, but their money went a lot farther.
Right.
And it's like, dude, each generation, the money's not going nearly as far.
Right. No, for sure.
It's like our generation, really. So
yeah.
It's hard not to say thanks for running the country the way they are.
Right.
So it's like, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where, like, I don't know. I feel my personal opinion on boomers is that they're like, oh, your generation's so entitled and this and that. And I was like, if you want to talk about like actions, I was like, nobody is more entitled than the boomer generation.
Right.
Y'all were working minimum wage jobs, got into a house that, you could have afforded at a minimum wage job. You worked your 20 years, you got your pension, you're raking over Social Security, and you're going to, Social Security is probably going to go away because of the baby boomers living as long as they are.
Stop.
And then
you want to know why Social Security is going to go away?
Why is that?
It's because of people not having kids. So So the idea behind Social Security, and I'm not trying to get off topic.
No, you're good.
I bowl in the winter time, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've been doing this for 12 years now or something.
Sure.
And it's funny because a few years back, all the guys on the team are complaining about Social Security. Right. And they're all a little older than me. And I look at them all, and I've known all these guys for a really long time. And I'm like, bro, you guys are the problem. And they're like, what are you talking about? I pay Social Security. I'm like, you're right, you do. I was like, we pay Social Security today for the people that did their time.
Right.
None of you guys have kids.
Right.
You guys are producing, which means
Right.
they're not going to contribute to Social Security. So when it's your time, because you didn't have kids, you're going to be the one that's milking the system and draining it.
That's fair.
Because, like, every year, right, it's capped based on the amount of income that you make.
Right.
Right, goes to Social Security. Now, so just in one, like, generation, like my dad's generation, like, almost everybody had kids. I know at least 40 to 50 people that will never have kids in my generation. That's one generation.
Right, yeah. No, for sure.
And then, like, the younger, that's what's going to be the end of Social Security. And that's where, honestly, like, we have to have immigration in this country to keep Social Security.
I was gonna say, I was like, that is what would solve it is immigration.
Let's open up the border and let everybody come through, but they gotta simplify it, or they gotta incentivize, because, like, you're essentially penalized for doing things normal.
Right.
Like, I got married, I had kids, I paid a lot for those kids.
Right.
I looked at my wife one day and was like, you do realize insurance didn't pay for any of our kids.
Right.
Like, because they make the deductibles and all that. I was like, we would have been better off if we didn't get married. We lived together.
Right.
You know, had the kids, they would have all been government, you know what I mean?
Right.
But I'm like, but because we were married, we got penalized for it.
Yeah.
You know? It's crazy.
It is. Well, and, like, that's, talking about the immigration thing, about, them replacing the kids that our generation isn't having, right?
Well, and part of that, right, is because wages haven't kept up.
Right. Oh, 100%. It's hard to have a kid. Like, people have dogs instead of kids now, and pretty soon they'll have pet rocks instead of dogs. Like, it's ridiculous.
Well, yeah, that's just dumb.
Right. Well, yeah, but, you get my point. Like, it's just expensive, right? So I think that, so this is funny because my girlfriend sent this over to me, and, I'm not a huge Trump guy, right? I'm a free thinker, is what I like to call myself. I'm a libertarian.
I'm a middle of the road, like, there's things on both sides that I agree with.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a very middle of the road guy, right? At the same time, I'll point out, like, BS when I see it, right?
You have to.
So she sent me this video, and she was like, "Hey, is this like legit, right?" And it was is it called, like, it's either Operation or Plan 2025 or whatever it is. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
No? Oh, okay. You're gonna love this. So it's I think it's like propaganda, right? Okay. So it's this, like, new, like, wave thing or whatever on TikTok or whatnot, where people are, saying, oh, there's this manifesto that, that Trump's people put together, and that, if he gets elected, he's going to enact or whatever. And it's like, we're going to, like, what was it? Defund schools or whatever, have, pastors go into schools and, like, teach students the Bible or whatever, right? We're going to outlaw gay marriage. We're going to deport every immigrant. And, like, all these, like, super, like, right-wing extremist ideals, right? That they're like, oh, Trump's gonna push all of this, like, banning abortion, like, completely, right?
I don't know if they can do that, though.
No, they can't. So, the Supreme Court turned it back to the states, 100%, right? So I'm like, this is all. I'm listening to all this, and I'm like, this is all easily, like, you can, if you just, like, understand what's going on and, like, what's already happened, like, you can't ban abortion. Because they've already overturned it to give it back to the states. So the states themselves are the ones that are deciding that. The Supreme Court's not going to go back on the decision they just made, right?
Well, and the president shouldn't even have the influence over the Supreme Court.
Right, exactly. So
because it's two separate entities, right?
Right.
That's
so
the judicial party, not the executive branch.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, no, this isn't legit. I was like, I've seen the same thing too. I was like, it's all propaganda to get people, like, really fired up right before the election.
That's what sucks about Facebook, dude. Honestly, social media.
Oh yeah.
Social media, like, and I use it every day, right? So I can't say anything, but Dude, it is not good.
No, it's not. It's like, and I know that there's like, I haven't done the research on this, but I know that there is like, potentially influence from Russia on like the type of
100%,
stuff that we're seeing on TikTok and everything else to get us
Bro,
fired up.
Who owns TikTok?
Yeah, the Chinese, right?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
I don't even need to say anything.
No, exactly, 100%.
Like, and I'm not saying like, because I know a lot of people that are Asian and Chinese, and they are amazing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Their governments.
Well, their government's the Communist Party.
Well, yeah, and they're dictator. Like,
it's a dictatorship. Yeah, 100%.
Like,
well, and that's another thing we'll get into in a second. But for the immigration part, right?
Yeah.
She was like, "Is that true?" Like, she's like, "I've got gay friends, and like, are they gonna, tell them that they can't get married or whatever?" And like, I've got, I know people that are immigrants. Like, are they gonna deport them? And I was like, no. I was like, they're not gonna deport people that they can make money off of in taxes. Like, it's not gonna happen. I'm like, that's the biggest thing. They're not gonna deport people that they can make money on taxes from. Also, it's a reality. It's not my opinion, right? But like, you have all of the farms in California, all the workers of the farms are illegal immigrants.
A lot of them.
A lot of them.
When I was a kid in Washington, I lived out there.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Like, that's, it's the labor is cheap, so the product can be cheap, right? Like, if you're paying somebody $20 an hour to go pick strawberries are going to be really expensive, right? And again, I don't run the farms, right? So I'm not the guy that's exploiting people, but that's the reality, right?
Right.
And so, it's just one of those things where I'm like, oh, like, and then as far as the Chinese go, well, yeah, people, of course, people believe it. Oh yeah, 100%. Speaking of the Chinese, I heard that like in potentially the reason why I think that China is trying to do a lot of this stuff is that their population is decreasing right now, and they're all old, right?
Well, they're influencing. So, remember, like 80s, 90s, when you were only allowed one kid?
Right. Yeah.
Now they're incentivizing people to have kids
Mhm.
but the population thing, that's a world problem.
Right.
It's not just a U.S. China problem.
Well,
It's
yeah.
everywhere.
Because in any developed country, like you've got, you now have people that are, like myself, where, my parents, when I'm 25 right now, when my parents were 25, they already had a kid.
Right.
And, like statistically speaking, I'm probably in a better financial position than my parents were at my age. And I couldn't see myself having a kid right now.
You can, you just make it work. But
well, yeah, but like
it's-
my whole thing is like I don't want to,
Well, yeah, and see that's the so let's just say it. Let's say what it is.
Exactly.
Like you're like, and I don't mean anything bad by this.
No, you're
but,
fine.
Like my buddies, I told them, y'all are just selfish. I was like, you guys want to do what you want when you want. You want to go do this, you want
Right.
to go do that, and that's fine.
Right.
There's nothing, you want to do your thing. But then you turn 60 and you're like, damn.
Right.
Got no kids, got no grandkids, got no one to hang out with. It's Christmas. I'm chilling by myself. Like
Right.
I've seen it.
Right. Yeah.
For like the older generations that don't have kids, like it hurts them.
Yeah.
I got buddies now that are 45 and they're like losing their minds because they want kids, but they can't. Like they wait way too long.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, but it's just it's hard though monetarily. Like I don't know, man. It's amazing like how like cost of living has changed so much.
Oh yeah, no, it's insane.
Like I love talking to my clients that are like older because they're like, well, interest rates were much higher when I bought my first house. And it was like, yeah, what were you making at the job when you started?
Yeah,
and like on a straight 40.
Yeah.
And I had one guy. He bought his first house in '84, and he started at the mill in '84.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him, what were you making ballpark?
Oh, I remember we had this. Yeah.
Yeah, and he said about 34,000 a year. So okay, or maybe it was 32. And the house was 34,000.
Right.
Or vice, maybe I get mix that up.
Yeah, but you made roughly the amount of the house per year.
Yeah, and I'm like, cool. I was like, and what did you making a straight 40 when you retired. And he told me, I'm like, okay. It was like, so like 100% more.
Yeah.
And he's like, pretty much. I was like, that's after 4 pay raises, inflation, this, that.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, that's my point.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, that same house, you sell it, you're making. Let's say he topped out at 150 a year.
Yeah.
That home that he paid $32,000 for back in 1980 is worth way more than 150 grand now. You know.
Right.
So yeah, and I think that like, the
Well, if wages kept up though, right? If you bought it
Right.
at 34, you'd be selling the house for what, 68 to 70? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
on the ratio that wages have kept up is my
Sure.
point, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So like, yeah.
But also too, like, we've had. I feel like '08 probably kind of reset the market. They definitely did, and so then like ever since '08.
Made a lot of people rich.
Right. But as far as the housing market goes, like it kind of reset like values in the housing market, and then we started kind of again from there.
Yeah.
So at that point, rates have been relatively low since then, right?
Way too low.
And so that's like, as anytime that I don't know the stat on this either, but if you look at like home prices, even from the 1920s or whatever to like let's say the 1980s, right? Because right after the mortgage was created in like 1930, it was post depression.
Yeah, because otherwise you refinance like every year because they're 5-year loans.
Right.
You want individuals for the loans usually.
And so at that point, like FHA loans created around 1930, and at that point, like once you're able to borrow and like have a longer term with a lower rate, and so your payment's cheaper. Every time your payment can be cheaper, home prices move higher because more people can afford it.
Right.
Like they're talking about introducing a 40-year fixed rate loan.
They were doing that in California a long time ago.
I don't know. Like I know it's one of those things where like you can do it on a modification.
Okay.
So like if I call my servicer and say, hey, I can't make my payments, they'll work with me because they don't want to take your house. Like that's the last thing that most servicers want to do, right?
Right.
So they'll work with you, be like, cool, let's drop you to, a 40-year term instead of a 30. And then that extra 10 years helps you drop your payment by maybe 10, 20%, right?
Right.
So it's not on a purchase transaction that I'm aware of.
Okay.
It's on a loan modification. But if they introduce it on the purchase side, then what's really going to happen is it'll help people out for
A while.
probably. Calling all real estate professionals in Indiana, Illinois, Michigan, Tennessee, and Florida. Jonathan Wells here, a mortgage specialist at the John Wells Group, powered by Leader One Financial. I specialize in helping your clients secure the best financing options for their dream home. Let's connect virtually to discuss how I can support your sales goals and enhance your client experience and satisfaction. Schedule your consultation today in the link below. Together, we can achieve more in real estate. A year or two, maybe 3 or 4 years. But then at a certain point, you're going to get to that where it's just as unaffordable as it is now because home prices have risen because everyone can put it on a 40-year term at that point. So
only on the modification, but yeah, it's
if they did it for a purchase is what I'm saying.
right.
Yeah.
I just feel like we're almost like kind of back in the industrial age right now. Like where like certain people at the top make such an insane amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Because you had Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt,
Mm-hmm.
JP Morgan. You had these guys. They were ruthless. Do you ever like look into these guys and how they work?
I've definitely like listened to YouTube videos on every single one of these guys.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
They were ruthless.
Oh yeah. I mean, they created the Fed, didn't they?
Well,
JP Morgan.
I want to say
Let me look this.
I don't want to talk on that because that I don't know. But they would literally, because they owned the papers, they owned the trains, they owned the steel yards, they owned everything.
Right.
And they would put in the paper, if you vote for this guy, I'm cutting your wages the next day by 50%.
Right.
Across the board, everybody.
Yeah.
So it's like because that's how Henry Ford finally got to make his first company and car in production after the first Democratic president got elected, and he allowed I forgot unionization, and it broke up all the big businesses.
Oh yeah, like the
Standard Oil and like
which
U.S.
president
Steel.
you talking about?
I can't remember.
I know that Roosevelt broke up a lot of monopolies
Yeah.
in business and stuff like that. But he was in the 19 teens, right? Was when Roosevelt was president, Teddy.
Yeah.
So okay, the 6 men that started the Federal Reserve: Nelson Aldrich, Pitt Andrew, Henry Davidson, Arthur Shelton, Frank Vanderlip, and Paul Warburg.
Yeah.
For some reason, I thought J.P. Morgan was a part of that.
No, that was after. I want to say this time or had nothing to do.
Gotcha.
'Cause those guys, but they were ruthless. And then when they basically got kind of broken up, right?
Hmm.
They became really good people.
Yeah.
Like they gave a lot back. They did a lot of stuff for people. You know what I mean? Things like that. But
Yeah.
I just feel like we're kind of in that point where even like on the government side, I'm not happy with either one of them.
Right.
Like,
No,
like,
me either.
None of them. Like,
Right.
they're all bought. They're all paid for.
Right.
They're all bought by big businesses, by big pharma. Like,
Oh yeah.
it's like the worst thing that ever happened is the super PACs. Like when that came in, and I think that was in 2002.
I don't know.
Super PACs could. Well, so like when I was a kid,
Right.
you couldn't donate more than $2,000 to the president.
Oh yeah. They changed. I just
It was
was
like
listening to something on that last
2002 or
night.
something.
I was
Yeah.
listening to I listened to Patrick Bet David a lot on YouTube and stuff, and so he was talking about. I was at the gym yesterday, and they were talking about that, where it literally went to, I think it was like a couple $100 million or whatever was donated in like to each candidate in 2016,
Mhm.
and then in 2020 it was like $4 billion.
Yeah.
Was donated to,
But it's just super PACs,
right?
In big corporations,
Right.
because they want certain things passed and bought and done, and that's like, if you like really go back in time, like, dude, it's my like, all right. So I'm gonna get on the food thing. My buddy had cancer, and we started doing all this research, and everything we have is just full of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, like Heinz, they spend a lot more money to make basically a better product to sell in other countries,
Right.
and they make a less margin than they do here.
Right.
They make way more money here because they're allowed to use dyes and all this fake
Right.
stuff. And
Yep.
I saw something on the news not that long ago. Some of these peanut butter companies found a way to make a fake fat so it tastes the same,
Right.
but it's cheaper for them to produce, but nobody knows how that fake fat is going to work in your body.
Right.
So now it's another thing your body's got to try to figure out.
Right.
And it's like, dude, what is going on?
Well, yeah, that I totally hear you. Like, our food sucks.
We're the only country though. Like,
Right.
Like even Mexico, you can't have dyes.
Right.
Like my buddy just got back from Denmark, and he's like, bro, grab a Fanta orange. He's like, grab one of theirs. Totally different.
Yeah.
Every way, shape, and form.
Wow.
He's like, it's insane. He's like, tastes the same.
Real quick before we continue on this topic, I do want to say, you mentioned that you feel like we're in the industrial age again. I think that we are. We're just it's on the internet side.
Yeah.
Obviously we're building, steel factories and, highways and railroads and everything like that back then. But now, I mean, we're doing everything digitally. Like we're still developing and learning how to use the internet, how to use AI and everything else.
Right.
And so I think that, you do have the Elon Musks, the Jeff Bezoses, like all of these people that, are kind of like the Dale Carnegies, and the Vanderbilts of our time, but it's all internet based, right?
Right. And when I say that, like I say it that way, I say it wage wise, I say it politically.
Oh yeah.
Because like back then you had one party to choose from and you didn't trust them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now we have two, and I don't trust either one of them.
Right. Yep.
It's like, what is going on, man? Like,
no, definitely.
Like, whatever just happened, like, hey, let's be for the people, not for my pocketbook.
Right. No, for sure. Well, and then
It's crazy.
as far as the food and stuff goes, like I'm trying to, get some raised beds and like start doing some like gardening or whatever in my backyard, because I don't want to have to pay for all of the different produce that I use, and because it's so expensive. And then I'm also looking at like, okay, if I actually do this, I was like, how do I I have to basically go on the black market to find non-GMO seeds. Like, it's ridiculous. Every single seed is GMO that they sell. It's ridiculous.
Right.
You can't find non-GMO seeds anymore.
Yeah. Well, you gotta make your own seeds, right?
Yeah.
Like, if that's one thing that you can do. Like from fruits and vegetables, you just take the seeds.
Well, but even that, like, I'm buying fruits and vegetables from the store. Like, they're gonna have GMOs in there, so their seeds are gonna have GMOs, right? I don't know if is that how that works. I think so. Like, if they alter the DNA of the plant, then the seed's probably gonna be altered too. You know.
Yeah, that's I don't know. That's my wife has raised garden beds.
Nice.
And she does all the gardening. She's big into that. And I'm always like, why do we gotta spend so much on this?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, why don't we till up a part of a yard, kind of like what farmers and people have done for thousands and thousands of years, instead of this raised garden bed where you're limited, you know, like on rows. Because like usually, like in a normal like garden, right, it's either 2 feet or 3 feet apart. The rows are.
Sure.
You make a garden bed at 4 feet. Technically, you can only fit one row.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because of the sides. 2 feet you're hitting the side, 2 feet you're hitting the side.
Right.
So it's like I tell her, like, can we please just get rid of this until like this area we will get way more vegetables, we will get way more growing. Like it'll be way better. It can actually root into the ground.
Right.
Instead of like whatever we're putting in there.
Right. My parents, they had a garden back when we lived at my grandpa's place on the farm, and it was like the garden itself was probably the size of this big room here.
Yeah.
So it was a massive garden.
Yeah.
And my parents were like, oh yeah, like you guys got to go weed or whatever. And dude, the weeds were just sprouting like crazy. And I was like, yo, we don't need we had 6 people in our family plus my grandpa, so we had 7 people. I was like, there's not this is more than 7 people's worth of vegetables, guys. I was like, let's just calm down and
canned it and all that.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. And I was like, guys, come on, this is more than what we need,
Hey, you gotta be safe, man.
Yeah.
Harvest or whatever. But yeah, it's like my grandpa's same thing. He had probably over a half acre for his garden.
Yeah.
An acre and a half acre is huge.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. He had all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. We're weird times.
For sure.
Home affordability is at like the lowest I think ever.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
In the history of America. So that's something to be proud of.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and again too, it's one of those things where even if rates drop, like it's not going to really help. It's just going to push home prices higher.
Right.
I think that for the people that are, looking at, okay, is there going to be a reset in the market? If so, when? Like, when is home prices going to be affordable again and whatever? It's really difficult to put a number on it because a lot of times with products like homes and everything else, it's not necessarily going to get cheaper because people make their money when home prices are higher, right? Builders make money when home prices are higher. Real estate agents make money when home prices are higher. Mortgage lenders make money. Title companies. Everyone makes money when home prices are higher. So there's no incentive to bring home values lower.
No, like I told Ron McCauley.
Taxes are higher.
Right.
Yeah.
I told Ron back in 2015, I already see the next housing crisis.
Right.
And he's like, what is it? I told him it's wages.
Yeah.
And he's like, so how do we fix it? And so he asked me, like, okay, explain it. Like, I think at that time, FHA, you could get a loan. This was like in the winter at like 3.25, and it wasn't for the life of the loan on the PMI yet.
Gotcha.
It was like in 2016, I think that went into place,
right?
June or whatever. And I was telling him, like, you make $60,000 a year, you can afford a $325,000 house with 3.5% down, as long as you don't have a lot of debt income and it broke down. I was like, now take that same guy, he owns a house for say 5 years at a normal 3% appreciation. That $325,000 house should be selling closer to, like, I think it was like $360 or something like that. I was like, but now go to pre-recession rates. and you go to 6.5. That guy can't sell it to his colleague with the appreciation because he can't even afford to buy his own house from himself at the original price.
Right.
That's what we see now.
Right.
And so it's like, and he's like, so how do we fix it? And the only way to fix it is people have to make more money.
Right.
And it's like, it, and the thing is, and honestly, dude, it was great. Did you watch Congress? They had an interview, one of the committees with Jerome Powell just the other day, and they were laying into him, and they were like, you're punishing like the people of the country and this and that, all because of corporate greed.
Mm-hmm.
And 100% it's corporate greed.
Oh, 100%.
It's like, shareholders, we got to show profits, we got to
Right.
do this. And I get it. Like, they got to make money. But because of big tax cuts that they got in 2017, they're making more money than they've ever made.
Right.
Right. That's why stock prices are higher than they've ever been.
Mm-hmm.
Plus all the PPP money and pandemic money and all that
Right.
came in, whatever. It's like, dude, but here's the thing. Like, if people don't end up making more money, you aren't going to have customers.
Right.
You're not going to have, any of this stuff.
Right.
And
right.
It's like, it's so annoying that it's so simple to see.
Right.
The fix, but the fix isn't going to get fixed because of the people at the top don't want it fixed.
Right. Right.
It's
No,
like,
100%.
I mean, I wonder. I haven't taken the time to do the math on it, nor do I want to, because it'll be annoying. But if you take if you from say the 20s to the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I did do this. So, because really, the inflation game started in 1945, right?
Right.
That's after World War II. The
Mm-hmm.
30-year mortgage was created. The world was booming, right? So nobody talks about that because we hit 19% inflation in 45. So that's when the game really started,
Right.
Where it was like, hold on, we got to do something here. Wages, and the only wage that I could track is minimum wage. So minimum wage from 1945 to 1981 grew 767%. Okay. Went from 30 cents an hour to $3.33 or something like that, something like that. It was 767%. From 81 to 21, minimum wage again, which is a minimum cost, right? It's supposed to be the minimum living standard.
Right.
It grew 115% in a 40-year period.
Mm-hmm.
So 36 years, 767%. The next 41 years, grew 115%. So in order to make life affordable, the interest rates had to keep coming down.
Mm-hmm.
But in that same period of time, it's like that's when the CEO pay started getting out of hand as the rates started coming down.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
And it's like, dude, the greed is so bad. But it's like the CEO rate, if you, I really wonder, because you remember the E. coli thing with the Chipotle Mexican grill.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember the CEO was on CNBC right when that happened, and they asked him so how do you feel about your wage? Because you're making over $14,000 an hour, and your average employee makes $750.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, huh? And that's so he's making over 2,000 times.
Right.
His average employee.
Yeah. Per hour.
You run a freaking fast food joint, bro.
Right. Yeah.
Go back 40 years ago, you'd be making $75 an hour, not $14,000 an hour.
Right. I mean, there is obviously, the wage that he's making is probably ridiculous, but also, I'm all for people making the money that they can make. At the same time, though, don't exploit your people. Make sure you're paying a fair wage. This, that, the other. Two things. One thing I want to wrap up real quick. For anyone that's looking for a housing correction or anything like that, I don't think we're going to see one until more inventory, obviously comes about, which is going to be, if the government incentivizes builders, I think you could see, which is what they should do, but I don't know if they're going to. That would help us get more inventory. And then also, as the baby boomers die off, that's going to be, they're going to have a lot more inventory at that point too.
You're already seeing it come, but it all needs work.
Right. Yeah. And it's coming gradually too, because they're living super long and everything like that,
Yeah. So they're going to have to come out with better renovation programs.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I think, but yeah, I don't see not in our market. I mean, there's markets now that are going through a big correction, mainly because of things that like big builders have done,
Right.
like the track builders.
Yeah.
Not a big fan of those guys.
No,
You
not
know,
not
they
either.
usually create housing recessions.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They start it,
Right.
and then it goes green again.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
It becomes the topic. But yeah, it's Northwest Indiana. I don't see it happening anytime soon though.
Yeah, no, and then
We're up 6.6% over last year. Last time I read the numbers.
That's
So it's
insane.
like, and then I actually what I did too is I removed the new construction from it, so we have more new construction now than
Right.
ever. So I did like homes built 2020 and beyond because like there's a glitch in the new MLS. And yeah, it's still up about 6.6% year over year.
Yeah.
So yeah.
There you go.
All these people come from Illinois, and then so many people that never bought a house before, because like the millennial generation's the largest population ever to buy homes, right?
Yeah, second or the largest since the baby boomers.
Yeah.
So that was like the next biggest generation was the baby boomers. So again, I think a lot of that inventory is going to get eaten up by the millennials, and then it's just going to kind of get pushed to the next generation.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. We definitely got off topic this week, though.
Yeah. No, I mean it's good. I just got to text my appointment, and I'm going to be about 5 minutes behind. So I'll wrap it up with this. Talking about corporate greed, I think that there's probably no better example of this than Shake Shack in Oak Brook.
Why?
I went there the other day, like to get, because my corporate office is out there. So I was gonna grab lunch, and I was gonna like grab lunch and then head back home or whatever, right? So I go there, and I'm paying like because like Shake Shack has like it's like In and Out, you can get like 2 burgers, and that's like kind of like a meal because the burgers are smaller or whatever. Got 2 burgers. Oh, okay. Well, it's like they're like in between like a regular burger and sliders is like kind of like the thing. It's like a mini burger, right? But it's not a slider. So I got 2 burgers, fries, and a drink. My total was like, I think it was over $20.
Right, I said I'm good.
Yeah, and then they were also like, oh, ask me for a tip, or they asked me for a tip or whatever. They turned the iPad around on me. I'm like, dude, I ordered my own food. I was like, I walked up to the counter. I was like, I'm not tipping. If I'm standing up when I order, I'm not tipping, right?
Right.
And so it's one of those things where like corporations, I feel like they feel like they can get away with paying people less because they're relying on the fact that people feel guilty when they're checking out, that if they're asked to put a tip, they'll always put 20%, right?
Right.
And I'm making it a standard practice for myself that I'm like, I am not tipping
Right.
unless if I'm sitting down when you come up to me and I order my food, then obviously I'll tip you because it's actually I'm getting something from this transaction.
They're getting you drinks and they're doing this.
Yeah, if you're doing that, cool, I'll help you. But if you just work in a cash register,
right,
I'm not giving you a tip.
Right.
And like tip, it's just the tip fatigue is what they call it, I think, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so done with tipping people when I'm doing all the fucking work myself.
Right. Well, and then they're going up at these rates that their food costs aren't going up that high. And it's like, again, it's all that thing like, oh, well, if I pay people more money, then I have to charge more for everything. No, that's the easy offset.
Right.
The simple offset is, first off, companies' margins were never what they are today.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So, in theory, right, the more money people have, the more money they spend.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So your margins go down, but you sell more.
Right.
So it's like, but on the corporate side, it's, they're all about margins. And it's the greed. It's just how it is. But
good deal. Well,
those things.
We'll wrap it up here. Appreciate y'all for listening. If you got this far, Brent, as always, appreciate you coming on the podcast, man.
Yeah, it was fun, man. Off topic for sure.
Well, it's a good time. Yeah, I'm cool with it. So, all right.
Cool.